All rise. Lockwood County Court of the 8th Judicial Circuit of Florida is now open in ceremonial session. Our Honorable Chief Judge Mark W. Mosley presiding. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the pledge of the flag of our country.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me ask you to please remain standing as Rich Chang, Assistant State Attorney, is going to lead us in our invocation.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, I pray from my heart for justice. Please give all judges the power to see the guilty and the innocent and to make fair decisions. Help them to use their brain and all the knowledge that they possess to help the innocent and the guilty be separated and apparent. May their justice be swift and fair and reflect what we know to be right in our hearts where you reside, Jesus Christ. For you are watching over them from above, and I pray the truth will ring clear in their mind and heart for all of the people of the court to remember. James 3:13 through 18 teaches us, "Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambitions in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambitions exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sworn in peace by those who make peace." Seeking wisdom and discernment is a lifelong journey, as it often takes time to receive these gifts and put them into practice. However, Father God is eager to share these with us if we just ask him, and he loves to give great blessings to his children. Like Solomon, our hearts should seek the Father's heart, including discernment and wisdom above and beyond all other earthly treasures. In Kings 3:9 through 12, Solomon asks God to give his servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern the Lord's people, that Solomon may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this your great people? It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this. And God said to him, "Because you have asked this, and have not asked for yourself long life or riches, or the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right, behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has ever been before, and none like you shall arise after you." Lord, I pray that this be the approach of Judge Brewer, to seek you in prayer for your guidance when the solution to whatever legal issues he may face that at first blush elude him. Bless his family, his lovely wife Laura, sons Justin, Kyle, and Blake, and give them the strength to be there for and to support Judge Brewer when he needs their love, strength, and counsel. Proverbs 3 13 through 18 teaches us, "Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding, for the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed." Proverbs 31 verse 9 teaches us to speak up and judge fairly, defend the rights of the poor and needy. And Leviticus 19 verse 15 tells us, "Do not pervert justice, do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly." Almighty God, our ultimate truth and supreme law, we humbly offer our day to you. May every word we speak today speak the truth, and every action we take serve the law. Make us able counsels to those who may seek our counsel, worthy officers of the court, and loyal servants of your justice. Measure our days not by our successes or failures, but by our faithfulness to your will. And may each day of doing your will bring us closer to your kingdom of righteousness, justice, and love. And finally, Judge Brewer, quoting Abraham Lincoln, "May the Almighty grant that the cause of truth, justice, and humanity shall in no wise suffer at your hands." May the Lord bless all those gathered here today for the recognition and celebration, and may all those gathered here today say, Amen.
Please be seated. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chief Judge Mark Mosley. I have the privilege of being the judge presiding over this ceremonial session of the 8th Judicial Circuit for the investiture of the Honorable Sean Brewer, Circuit Judge. I'd like to begin by acknowledging our local elected leaders and dignitaries that I have that are present. I apologize if you're overlooked. I have the list that was given to me. We certainly want to acknowledge and thank you for your presence. State Attorney Brian Kramer is present. Chief Assistant State Attorney Heather Jones as well. Our clerk, J.K. Jesse Irby. Major Josh Cruz, also who led us in the opening of court, Under Sheriff Joel DeCourcy, present with us today. Alachua County Chief Jesse Sandusky with us. High Springs Chief J. Antoine Shepard. Certainly appreciate our law enforcement present. Alachua County Tax Collector John Power with us today. Commissioner Mary Helen Wheeler. Mayor Gib Kerper from Alachua. Colonel Chad Scott of Gainesville Police Department, and City Manager Mike Griffiths from McClenny, and City Commissioner Cecil Horn Jr. from McClenny as well. Certainly thank all of you for your presence, and I apologize if anyone was missed. We also have with us, as you see to my left, a number of my colleagues, quite a few judges that are with us today, and I would like to introduce those to you. We have from the First District Court of Appeal with us today, Judge Adam Tannenbaum is here. Certainly welcome him. Next to him is Judge Robert Grebe, Judge Donna Keim, Judge Phil Penna is here, Judge James Colaw from the second row, Judge Suzanne Wilson Bullard, Judge Gloria Walker, I don't see anybody between you, Judge Craig DeThomasis, let's see behind you, Judge George Wright is here, and then our county judges are here, Judge Walter Green, Judge Sheree Lancaster from Gilchrist County, Judge Susan Miller-Jones on the third row, Judge Christine Van Vorst, Judge Laura Lee Brannon from Baker County, then also visiting with us Judge Jennifer Bass, Judge James Baxley, and Judge Anthony Taddy, all from the Fifth Circuit. We're glad to have you all with us today. I understand that that's something that Judge Brewer and I share in common, that beginning in our legal career, spending time down in the Fifth Circuit. In fact, Judge Taddy was my first supervisor in misdemeanor court when I began practicing law, and so it's always good to see him. But I thank my colleagues for being present here today. Good number here for this occasion. I want to make something clear in the beginning of our proceeding today by acknowledging this as a ceremonial session. We certainly do not intend in any way to lessen the solemnity or the dignity and the importance of why we are assembled at this time. Judge Brewer actually officially took office on January the 3rd, 2023, when his commission, of course, was signed by the governor. He sent in his qualifying fee, and he took his oath of office that as well was submitted. And since then, Judge Brewer has been hard at work in our northernmost county of our circuit in Baker County, which I consider to be the crown of this great circuit, and he has been immersed in his responsibilities in all things circuit judge, except for the one thing he is most experienced and qualified in, and that would be criminal law. So he is now becoming an expert very quickly in all of the other areas that he has to cover in Baker County, in the family courts, in our civil courts. He began getting ready for that. He was not surprised by that. He understood that should he be given the privilege to serve in this capacity, he would have these responsibilities. He began preparing himself and has been off and running, and by all reports is doing quite well with these responsibilities. And so we certainly appreciate the work that he's already doing. But if that's true, then what's the purpose of an investiture, which has been described as the formal or ceremonial enrobing of judicial authority? We could just have a reception. That could be the thing to do, and there is going to be one to follow, so don't miss the reception. There will be an opportunity for a great celebration after we are done with this session of court. But Judge Brewer could have given a speech there. He could have thanked everyone during the reception and told us of his commitment to his new office. All of that could have been done without this special proceeding. So there must be something more to this moment than merely a celebration. This is bigger than that. And at the reception, Judge Brewer will be entirely the focus, as will his family, who we are certainly glad and welcome here today. But this ceremony is bigger than that. It certainly has Judge Brewer at the focus. He is in the center of the ceremony, that's true enough. But it's bigger than just Judge Brewer, because all of these judges have gathered. We essentially have shut down, for the most part, the courthouse proceedings throughout our circuit. We've assembled all of these judges and dignitaries here for this moment, and we're here to bear witness to Judge Brewer as he's going to make solemn promises to the citizens of the great state of Florida that he has now been given the privilege to serve. We're here, all of us, to be reminded whenever we have these occasions. I have missed very few in my term as being judge of these proceedings. I can't think of maybe one or two that I've missed, because they have importance to us. It reminds each of us of our own solemn oath and the promises that we too made in taking on this responsibility. And so our assembly here today is a visible reminder that the sum of who we are is greater than the individual parts. Alexander Hamilton described the judicial branch as the least dangerous of the branches of government. And that is true. You know, the executive branch bears the power of the sword and has the capacity to dispense honors. The legislative branch, he points out, controls the purse and prescribes the rules. And the judicial branch has neither force nor will, but merely, as Rich Chang prayed so eloquently about, we have judgment. That's what we exercise. And ultimately, we depend upon the executive branch for the giving of efficacy to those judgments. So how do we fulfill our role, our important role as a barrier to the potential encroachment or oppression of the representative bodies? Well, we're here to be reminded today that our power lies indeed in the steady, upright, and impartial administration of laws through which we carry out our sworn duty to protect the Constitution of this state and the Constitution of the United States and the individual rights of the citizens whom we served. So it's my privilege to be here today and to preside over these proceedings. I want to thank you all for your presence. So at this time, we're going to have the administration of the oath of office by the Honorable Robert Grebe, Circuit Judge.
Thank you. You and your family like to come up, Judge Brewer? I will give this to your lovely wife. I'm going to have you...
Where do you want me?
I want you to face the camera. So if we could have you over here. All right, we've got everybody here. Mr. Chief Judge, please the court. If you would, place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, Judge Brewer, and repeat after me. I, Sean David Brewer, do solemnly swear
I, Sean David Brewer, do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States of America
the Constitution and government of the United States of America
and the state of Florida,
and the state of Florida,
and that I am duly qualified
to
hold office
under
the Constitution of the state of Florida, and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of Circuit Court Judge of the 8th Judicial Circuit, on which I am now about to enter. So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, we will have remarks by Attorney Gabe Hamlet, Esquire.
May it please the court.
May.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's been a while since I've been in a courtroom, much less been asked to speak in a courtroom. And so I asked Sean, what am I supposed to say for remarks at something like this? He said, I can say whatever I want. I just got to take at least 60 minutes. So I said, okay, I can do that for you, Sean. So I first met Sean in my second year of law school. I had just been hired to be the new law clerk at the law firm of Moody & Salzman, which is now Moody, Salzman & Lash. And I had been hired to replace the outgoing law clerk, the Honorable Sean Brewer. And so my first day in the office, I think, was Sean's last day. So we crossed paths for just a few minutes. I think he was collecting his final check. But he was off to start his career at the state attorney's office in Ocala. And so that was it. Saw him for a couple minutes first time I met him. Fast forward 2 years, and now I had graduated law school, and I was starting at the state attorney's office in Ocala. And so I got to talk to Sean for a little more than 5 minutes this time. In fact, Sean and I both lived in Gainesville, and we were commuting to Ocala every day. And it just turned out Sean lived right around the corner from me. So I know assistant state attorneys make a lot of money today, but back then we were trying to save our pennies. So we said, hey, maybe we can ride in together. And so Sean and I carpooled down Ocala every day for a couple years there. And if you spend 2 hours in the car every day with someone for 5 days a week, I would say you get to know that person a little bit. And Sean, being much older than me, much wiser than me, and more experienced than me, I leaned on Sean quite a bit as the new prosecutor. And I would bounce ideas off of him and run my arguments by him. And you know, Sean was just a great sounding board for those types of things. He knew the law. He would be like, hey, look at this case. You know, he just knew cases by memory, and you need to learn this. And so not only did I end up saving on some gas money, but I made a very good friend who kind of became my mentor, being a couple years older than me. So that was all great. I got promoted up to felony. Sean had been there. You kind of see a pattern starting to exist. Wherever Sean goes, I'm going to come behind a year or two later. So maybe I'll be a judge in 2 years. I don't know. But I also got to work for Mr. Taddy in the felony division. And we continued our conversations. I continued learning from Sean. And then he left me. He wanted to come to the Gainesville office to be a little closer to home. And less than a year later, so Sean was assigned out to Levy County. And we had a great team out there. Honorable David Kreider was the division chief at the time. Mr. Chang joined us out there for a while. And then when Mr. Kreider came into Gainesville, Brian Kramer was our new boss out there. So we had a great team out there. I also got assigned to Levy County, so you kind of see the pattern there, following Sean around, which meant I got to save on gas again. So I was like, Sean, let's drive out to Bronson together. So we got to ride together again, and you know, now you got a whole new set of judges, whole new set of attorneys, so there's a lot of judges here. I don't know if you guys know, but attorneys ask questions and they talk about you. All good things. All good things. But, you know, if I'm going to appear in front of a judge, I need to know certain things. So, again, Sean was there to kind of show me the ropes as the new guy. And another thing, I don't know, I thought I knew a lot about 80s trivia, things like that. If you need someone on your trivia team for music trivia or movie trivia or sports trivia, any kind of trivia, Sean is your guy. So just a wealth of useless information in that regard. But there was this radio station, and so Sean and we have 45 minutes every morning, and I don't know, they probably didn't run their contest the smartest way. It wasn't caller number 7, it was whoever called in first won the prize every morning. And so we memorized their number, and somewhere between Jonesville and Archer, every morning, there would be a contest, and Sean would call in and he would win. Then the next day I would call in and I would win. So they created a new rule. You had to wait 30 days before you could win again. So we would put it on our calendar, 30 days eligible to win radio contest. And on the 30th day, Sean would call in, he would win. And then the next day I would call in. Sometimes Sean would have to help me out. Sometimes I'd have to help Sean out. But at this point, Sean had started a family, so we're talking about more than just lawyer things, talking about life and family things. And again, someone I just always looked up to, and almost like my mentor, but almost like a big brother in a lot of ways. And so our careers diverged. I went into banking after that. Sean came into the Gainesville office, and when he called me up and said, hey, I'm thinking about running for judge, my first thought was, what took you so long? You're going to be an incredible judge. I said, absolutely, you have my full support. And so you think about the qualities you look for in a judge. You know, you want someone who's hardworking. I don't know if you were witness Sean's campaign, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone work harder on any type of campaign, going from one end of the circuit to the other, several counties in the same day. So definitely possesses the work ethic. You want someone who's going to be patient and have an even temperament, Well, Sean has coached children, different sports teams, probably hundreds of teams, probably thousands of kids in the last 20 plus years. I had the opportunity to coach one of his sons. He's had the opportunity to coach my sons. And so I don't know if it's harder to have more patience with litigants and attorneys or with teenagers and kindergartners, but whatever it is, Sean's always got an even, steady demeanor, and he's your guy that you want on the bench. He's the guy you want coaching your kids. And then Sean, like I say, he's one of the smartest attorneys I've known. So I know there's a lot of attorneys and judges in the room. When someone's announcing their candidacy for a judge, your family and friends are like, who do I vote for? Who do I vote for? You know, they don't, there's a lot of things judges can't say. And so they kind of rely on people who know the attorneys that are running. And so I would unequivocally and enthusiastically always say, Sean Brewer is your guy for all those reasons. And that's really all you can ask for in a judge. Someone like Sean who has those qualities. And congratulations, Sean, you're going to do outstanding. So just one last thing. So hypothetically, if you're ever on the bench and you have two young, idealistic, fun-loving attorneys in your courtroom, and say they devise a game, a contest, hypothetically, and the object is to come up with a list of words and assign point values to those words. The more outlandish or more ridiculous the word, the higher the point value, hypothetically. And if those attorneys keep score to see who can introduce those words into the record in open court without getting caught by the judge as to what you're doing. So for example, if you're trying to make the court reporter type supercalifragilisticexpialidocious 5 times in 2 or 3 minutes, hypothetically, just remember maybe one of those attorneys will be a judge in 20 years.
At this time, we will have remarks on behalf of the 8th Judicial Circuit Bar Association, the President, Robert Folsom, who also is as close to general counsel as we can have in the 8th Circuit, and is greatly appreciated by all the judges, and I know Sean is already learning the importance that role he plays.
May I please the court? Distinguished judges, members of Judge Brewer's family, Judge Brewer obviously, distinguished guests and friends. As president of the 8th Judicial Circuit Bar Association, it is my great privilege to be here today as we formally invest Judge Sean Brewer into the judiciary of the 8th Judicial Circuit. Investiture is a word rooted in Latin that literally means enrobe. In its original meaning, an investiture was the robing of a new office holder in garments that symbolize power. Today, it is a ceremonial custom whereby individuals are invested with office. In this case, it is the office of judge and all the authority, duties, and responsibilities that come with that position. Keeping with this custom, judges are presented with a black robe at their investiture. The judicial robe is one of the most commonly recognized symbols of the legal system. The black robe worn by a judge symbolizes the responsibility to uphold the Constitution and rule of law, their honor and authority, and a judge's neutrality and humility as servants of the people. Our judges and courts each day strive to ensure the fair, impartial, and independent administration of justice so that all citizens and attorneys are treated with respect, dignity, and fairness. We entrust them to make some of the most important decisions that protect our liberties and our fundamental and sacred rights as set forth in the Bill of Rights. Judges ensure that everyone receives a fair shake in the application of our laws. I am proud that I am an attorney within the 8th Judicial Circuit. Throughout the state, the 8th Circuit is known for its professionalism. Our esteemed judiciary is a large part of why we have this reputation. I am confident that Judge Brewer will continue to uphold this standard. I am further confident that Judge Brewer will perform the duties of the office with honor, professionalism, neutrality, humility, and virtue. Congratulations to you, Judge Brewer, on your election to the circuit bench. On behalf of the local bar, it is my honor and privilege to welcome you and present you this black robe, which we are sure you will wear with distinction. We wish you all the best. Thank you.
Sweet.
Thank you, Laura and Justin, Kyle, and Blake Brewer for participating in the enrobing of your husband, your father. Having been in the war room of running an election, I know how important this moment is, how much you've done. I know that you share this in a lot of ways as participants, so it's good that you're here and had that opportunity to participate with your dad. We have some remarks now by Justin Brewer.
Please, the court.
Hello and thank you. I am honored to be able to speak in front of this room today. I met Sean as a matter of circumstance, actually. But yeah, when my dad informed me last March that he would be running for circuit court judge, I was woefully informed of what that actually meant. In my head, I rationalized that statement to mean that he was essentially just kind of signing up to be the judge because he wanted to be. But I was wrong, very wrong. What the statement actually meant was a summer-long excursion of watermelon festivals in cities I'd never heard of, farmers' tans from standing at the Millhopper Library, waving signs in the summer sun, and realizing that the election websites of these 6 counties in the circuit sometimes don't actually work on the election night. And while the campaign trail was pretty brutal, I believe that helping as much as I could was a way for me to try to return a portion of the selfless help my dad has given me all my life. I remember vividly at a very young age the first time my dad told me a story. It was in our backyard on our trampoline where we laid for hours and he told me who he was, where he came from, and what he did. He explained to me what a prosecutor does and about the crimes against women and children, cases that he prosecuted. Even at that young age, when we talked about that, it gave me a sense of pride. A sense of pride that my dad does something good, that he helps people who can't help themselves and need justice when they are at their most vulnerable. Growing up, I always enjoyed sharing to my friends and peers what both my parents did, and even when someone asks to this day, I still feel that sense of pride. Now, I quickly learned throughout this process that this position was something that my dad deeply wanted and truly believed that he could do. I'm not sure that even presidential candidates campaign as hard as he did for this campaign. I was amazed at the level of determination he expressed every day from the moment the campaign started to the day he was elected. He would spend at least 12 hours a day going to put up signs, going to events, talking to people, and still have the energy at the end of the day to stop at Publix or even drive my brothers to baseball practice. Now, this might be impressive to me because I can barely make it to my 8:30 class in the morning, but I still think it was a pretty impressive feat. And I think that the main reason that so many people supported his campaign was not only because of his qualifications, of which there were many, but the consistent hard work that he maintained throughout the process that was evident to anyone who was paying even the slightest bit of attention. As a judge, I have no doubt that he will enforce the law in a fair and just manner. He has always been a firm believer in the law, whether that be in the courtroom or at the slightest infraction of any board game rule. I know he will make decisions in a fair and level-headed manner, and I know he will treat each individual in front of him with respect and without prejudice, just like I have seen him do my entire life. Unless, hypothetically, that individual were to accidentally leave his cleats at home on the way to practice, or maybe ask for a poster board at 11 o'clock at night, the night before a project is due in the morning. then I'm confident that that sentence might be life without parole. All jokes aside, I'm very proud of your hard work and determination to get to this massive achievement. I cannot imagine a better father to raise me, and I cannot imagine a better person for this job. Thank you.
Well, as I said, I have missed very few investitures, and those were as great a remarks as I have heard in the many years I've been doing this. That was terrific. Thank you, Justin. At this time, we have the presentation of the nameplate on behalf of the Florida Conference of Circuit Judges, which will be presented by the Honorable Philip Penna. Mr. Penna?
Wow. Can we give another round of applause, Justin? That was... those of us who are parents would love to hear your child speak the words that you did. It was great. I walked into the courtroom and I wanted to see Justin. I'll be honest with you, Justin. I don't know if you remember much about our days together. And I wanted to see what has changed. So in 2012, Sean kindly asked me, I think he was mistakenly believed that I had some basketball skills, which I tout, which apparently have faded. But he asked me if I would help in coaching a team at the YMCA, the Orange Crush. And in fact, I just went up to my office before, as I was running late, and I took a look at the picture. The picture of the team is there with a number of other teams that I've helped coach or coached. And so I thought to myself, what am I going to say about Sean, right? Am I just going to come up here and I'm just going to hand him the nameplate, which I could do, and maybe some of you hoped that I would. But I thought I just wanted to say a few words about him as a person. And so I thought, well, I could talk about my time with him at the state attorney's office when we were colleagues. I thought I could talk about when he came before me in court on hearings and trials. One in particular, I see Mr. Kramer here, that I recall, it was difficult and probably without question, the most serious type of case you can present. And I could talk about maybe our personal interactions, about how I felt about him and how I come to my beliefs in his ability as a judge. But I thought the easiest way to do it is to harken back to 2012. I think it was 2012. How old were you in 2012? 10. Jeez Louise. 10 years old. I don't think I've grown. I don't think I've shrunk yet, although that's coming. But I think you were probably about yay tall, somewhere around there. And so those of you, Sean, I think will agree with me. You don't always remember just the athletic ability of kids. And certainly you had that, without question. But you remember about the child, and you were a child at that time, the child, him or herself. And so I'll tell you what I remember. And I remarked about it back then to my wife and to some of the other parents that were involved about Justin. I know this is not Justin's investiture, but it's going to lead back to Sean. And to Laura. This is what I remember. There was a young man who cared about coming to practice. I know this sounds simple. An intelligent young man, someone who cared about his teammates. He worked hard. He was coachable. Oh my gosh. He was coachable. I mean, he was willing to learn about any deficiencies he may have had to get better for himself and for his teammates. And so I thought to myself, well, other than just giving those great words to Justin, and as a testament to the great work that both Laura and Sean have done with all of their kids, and by the way, I remember the two of you too, but you were like, especially this little one, I think you were just like running around the court on occasion. So it's not only a testament to their parenting skills, but what is it that Sean's going to bring to the bench? And so there's no better testament than your own child. Because those same characteristics that Justin showed
I know he was 10 years old. I thought you were 11 or 12, to be honest with you, but 10 years old are the same characteristics that Sean has. He has already started to bring to the court, and he will continue on bringing to the court in his cases. He's intelligent. He's hardworking. He cares about what he's doing and the decisions that he's making. And I didn't even add this because this was the beginning part of it, the very first thing. This young man, just like Sean, polite. Geez, that's interesting. Polite with people. And all of those characteristics Sean has brought already to the circuit bench and will continue bringing. And that's not me just talking, right? I can just come up here and give you my thoughts and my opinions. But I think Judge Brandon, where's Judge Brandon? There. And also, I share some Baker County time with Sean, as Judge Brandon does in the county court there. And I've already started to hear. They miss Judge Walker. There's Judge Walker. But they've already said and gave great comments about Sean and what he's done, his work product, his hard work. It's quite a little drive out there. And he doesn't complain. He's not concerned about it. He's concerned about doing the job for the people of this circuit. So that's the backdrop that I wanted to share. And with that being said, on behalf, of course, at this age, I've got to actually see what I'm going to say. On behalf of the Florida Conference of Circuit Judges, on behalf of Judge Grebe, who is our representative, if you can come up, Sean, to the Florida Conference of Circuit Judges, excuse me, I'm going to present your nameplate, which reads as follows: Circuit Judge Sean Brewer, commissioned January 3rd, 2023, and again presented by the Florida Conference of Circuit Judges. I wish you the best. Congratulations. Thank you, brother.
So at this time, we're going to have a welcome to the bench by the Honorable Judge Denise Ferrero. I'm going to move over and allow you to take center.
Thank you. I always love seeing Laura Brewer because she has such a great smile and makes us all feel a little calmer. Right, boys? Yeah. I also promised your dad I would try not to call you by your nicknames that I've heard over the years. Okay? It's going to be hard, especially the middle one, right, Blake? But I'm not going to. Chief Judge Mosley, my fellow judges and elected officials, and all of those assembled here today, thank you for joining us to honor Judge Sean Brewer as we celebrate his investiture. Sean, Laura, if you look at me now, Sean, Laura, Justin, Kyle, and Blake, thank you for allowing me this great honor of welcoming you to the bench on behalf of all the judges in the 8th Judicial Circuit. This is a wonderful opportunity to celebrate with Judge Brewer and the community that elected him. I have had the good fortune to know Judge Brewer for more than 20 years. I hate to even say that out loud, but it's true. We first met at a conference. Do you remember that, a conference? And he was in the 5th Circuit and I was in the 8th. He was handling the very low-key civil commitment of sexually violent predators, as was I. Sort of a new law that had come into effect, and we did a lot of those cases. So that was the conference we were attending. We were both responsible for cases involving domestic violence and sexual battery. And I really liked him. I liked him a lot. I went back to our office and I said, hey, there's this great guy in Marion County. You should hire him. Anyway, I don't think I had anything to do with you getting hired. However, I'm glad to see that you ended up in the 8th. After I left the state attorney's office, Sean joined the state attorney's office. He also, he and I had a very similar path too. He followed me into the state attorney's office and I was the division chief of crimes against women and families, and he became the division chief of crimes against women and families, where I think both of us have a passion. So I felt good that that was the kind of person they put in that role, because Sean is a great person for that role. So we remained friendly over the years. Our families have children that are similarly aged. Our boys, I have twin boys, and they are in between Blake and Kyle. They've gone to camp together, and they're good friends. Also, of course, Coach Sean, coached them in T-ball. And if you've ever been to a Gator basketball game, the halftime shows where Judge Brewer is like the only person that brings teams. My boys played with him in those events. So if I asked for a show of hands, I bet that a lot of people here would not just know him as Sean, but know him as we know him, Coach Sean. And I thought that was his secret weapon in the campaign, that he had coached so many youth in our community. Sometimes we hear people say that our job is to call balls and strikes. So your experience as a coach will help you. I have 3 things that I tell judges when they start, if I have the opportunity. I've already told these to Judge Brewer. I'll tell them to you so you can see how the sausage is made. Judge Holslander, the first thing he told me after I was elected was, always go to the bathroom before you take the bench. Good advice. From Judge Monaco, always be careful not to roll over your robe. And this is my own advice. When you're walking up and down the stairs, since you're not used to wearing what is a long flowing dress, lift your robe up so you don't trip on it and fall down the stairs. Now let's get a little more serious. I know Sean to be intellectually curious, hardworking, and prepared. These are qualities that will serve him well as he serves our counties. I am a big fan of Hamilton the Musical. So I'm going to share with him my 10 rules, not the dual commandments, but my 10 rules that have served me very well over the past 15 years in the hopes that they will give him a foundation upon which to rely as he moves forward. Often it is the simplest things that are most important in reaching a just and legally accurate result. 1, always let both sides be heard. 2, take a few minutes to think about your decision before announcing it. What you say is sometimes not as important as how you say it. If you know how you want to rule, then do it. Really listen. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. Help people understand why you made your decision. Be courteous, even if you are giving bad news to someone. It's okay if an attorney or litigant doesn't agree with your decision. What may seem like a small problem to you is not a small problem to the people before you. Treat every issue like it matters the most. People think judges know everything. We don't, of course, but take time to find the answer. And if we would listen to Judge Tannenbaum, for sure, we would go first to the statutes and the Constitution. We had a little discussion about that, which I thought was great advice. Always take the time to find the answer. Remember to treat the last person you see in a day with the same energy and interest as the first person. As judges, we preside over a courtroom. The people around you will listen to you and follow your directions. Be mindful of that responsibility. In the courtroom, you will see people who are invested in your decisions. They are litigants, fellow citizens serving as jurors who will be sworn to decide ultimate facts, the court deputies, the clerks of court, and the court reporters, members of court administration. They are all here to help make your job easier and safer. You owe the same to them. Be mindful of their needs. Translation, give them a lunch break. Be efficient and make decisions, but never hurry. Much of what you do will become routine. Because of this, or perhaps in spite of it, there will be times your patience will wear thin. These are the times to take a deep breath, keep your calm and courteous demeanor, and model the behavior you want to see. You will find that there are people who used to call you Sean or Coach Sean. They never will again. From here forward, you have a new first name, Judge. Don't let it go to your head. Your role and responsibilities have changed, but the person you are and have always been has not. Hang on to that. Some of my final thoughts. Continue to put your family first. They will always be most important. You will be surprised at how many of the lessons you've learned as a spouse, as a parent are the very ones that will help you in your day. Remember that your friends and colleagues on the bench will always help you and support you. Never be afraid to ask for help. Be true to the values and beliefs that have guided you thus far. Always be yourself. Remember that people might be intimidated by you just because you are a judge. You will set the tone for respect and decorum. Use your smile, your humor, and your kindness to make people feel comfortable. Continue to be the reason why the 8th Judicial Circuit is such an amazing place to live and work. Judge Brewer, it is an honor to welcome you to the bench. Please join us. You come here. You got to come to the bench. It's a tight squeeze.
I feel like I've already failed my first test when I went for the podium.
No.
Please be seated. Thank you all. If it pleases the court, I want to thank everybody for being here today. In my mind, when we were planning this day, I was expecting about 4 people. I figured that I'd probably show up. I figured that my wife of 28 years would probably show up if she didn't know about the pickleball tournament that's going on right now in Gainesville. And then I banked on maybe 2 of my 3 kids. I wasn't sure which 2, but I figured 2 of them would come. So the fact that so many people are here and so many people that I am so happy to see are here, I am truly grateful. Thank you so much. I do have an incredible number of people to thank, and I hope I have either seen, spoken, or texted all of you in the last 6 months. I can't thank everyone personally today, or we would be here all night, but please know this. I am forever grateful for everybody that has supported me throughout this entire process and throughout my career. That goes from people who were very involved with me, or people who just gave me a smile as I was walking into a room to give a speech where I knew nobody. That meant the world. And I thank everybody for everybody's help. I appreciate the constant kindness I've received from the citizens of the 8th Judicial Circuit, and it's one of the reasons why I firmly believe we live in the best area of Florida that there is. I'd like to start by thanking some people who were involved in the ceremony today. I'd like to start with Richie Chang. Thank you for giving the invocation today. I always enjoy your words, your wisdom, and as you would say, your witty repartee. I'm honored that you were willing to be involved in my investiture today. Bob Klein. Bob Klein is my neighbor, and there is no better neighbor than Bob Klein. I can tell you that right now. I thank the Kleins for their friendships over the years, and I've seen how respected Mr. Klein is throughout this entire community, and I've seen it firsthand, and I'm proud that you were involved in my ceremony today. Thank you. Gabe Hamlet. I want to thank Gabe for the very kind words. We have been friends for over 20 years. I don't know anybody else who's more respected in this community than the deacon, Gabe Hamlet. He left some things out that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. First of all, it is true that he followed me to certain jobs throughout my career. And it is true we diverged when I came to the Gainesville State Attorney's Office and Gabe went to Campus Credit Union. What he left out, but it was probably obvious, is that he never brought me over to the Campus Credit Union. So it was a one-way street. But I certainly appreciate Gabe Hamlet, and he talks about our games of supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. That's absolutely true. And I can tell you, as a trial attorney, you haven't lived until you've read a transcript as you're preparing for an appeal or a motion or whatever it was, and you see yourself saying, "Judge, things are moving so fast, I feel like I'm on a tilt-a-whirl." And because that was one of the words that Gabe Hamlet gave me to put into the transcript. So I do want to maybe point out that the other thing about Gabe, in addition to being a great attorney, is that Gabe Hamlet likes to have a lot of fun. And so he invented a game, and I think now that I'm no longer a prosecutor, I can probably tell you this without worry of and Mr. Cervone not being here today, that we would play in Levy County where we found this doll.
Your Honor.
We found a doll, and I think it may have been in our playroom for the kids. It was a troll doll. It was just the head. It had been detached from the rest of the body. And so Gabe said, well, why don't we play a game like golf where we guess how many throws it takes us to get this doll's head to certain locations here in the office. Well, that grew to how many throws do you think it would take us to get on Judge Joe Smith's bench in the courthouse? I can tell you the answer was 18. And I can tell you that I had nothing but a fantastic time working with Gabe Hamlet, and I know what a great job he's been doing at the credit union, so thank you, Gabe. Robert Folsom, thank you so much. In addition to being a fantastic bar president, as Judge Mosley has already talked about, he is an incredible asset as the senior staff attorney. I can tell you that firsthand from only having worked 4 months. So thank you very much, and thank you to the 8th Circuit Bar for the gift of this robe. Under Sheriff DeCourcy, thank you so much for opening court for me today. You're an incredible ambassador for Alachua County, and thank you for filling in for the sheriff today, and I'm very honored that you were a part of this. Thank you. Brian Ray, we haven't heard from Brian Ray yet, but we are going to, and Brian and I became friends when my son Justin played soccer with Brian's son at Gainesville High School. He and Shannon are fantastic people, and I am honored that you came and are going to give the benediction today. I would like to thank my judicial assistant. Tina Haynes is here, and she's been helping me get through this for the past 4 months. And I know Judge Mosley has already told you that things didn't start today. They have started for 4 months. And I want to thank her for all of her help since we started in January. Christy Kane, is Christy in here? Christy Kane is, we'll just call her the wedding planner of Investitures. And she is phenomenal. And I can assure you this, everything that you like about this investiture today was because of Christy Kane. Everything you're not so sure of was when she allowed me to make the decision. So that's where we're at. I can tell you just last week, she said to me, you have to decide what color paper to use for the invitations. And I said, Christy, yeah, why don't you pick? It doesn't matter to me. And she says, yeah, it's no big deal. She goes, but come on over across the hall and take a look at what we've got. So I came over, and there was yellow and there was white. And she goes, what do you think? And I said, Christy, you tell me. Whatever you think is fine with me. And Christy said, you're right. This isn't important. Don't worry about it. But can you just pick one? I said, sure, Christy. How about the yellow? And Christy looked at me and she goes, oh, I'm so glad you said that. So everything that is good is because of Christy, and everything that's bad is when she let me make the decision and didn't steer me into the right direction. I'd also like to thank the citizens of both Baker and Alachua County. For the past 4 months, that's where I've been. I'm generally in Alachua County Monday through Wednesday, and up in Baker County on Thursday and Friday. And I can't tell you how great it is and how fantastic people have treated me in both of those counties. And I want to thank the citizenry. I know we've already mentioned that we have Mr. Horn and Mr. Griffiths here from Baker County. It really means a lot that you would come all the way here for this investiture, and thank you so much. I want to thank all the judges that are here today, all of which have my respect and admiration. I want to thank a judge who's not here today, and that's Tim Browning. Tim was supposed to be here and be involved in this ceremony, and he wasn't able to do it. Tim's retirement day is actually on Monday. Tim is another person I've known for 20 years. He was my supervisor at the state attorney's office for the crimes against women and children. And I will say that Tim has a combination of intelligence and wit that isn't matched by many. And so I do want to thank Tim for everything he's done for my career and for his willingness to be involved in this ceremony today, even though he wasn't able. I want to thank Judge Grebe for being involved and for administering the oath today. I have so much respect for Judge Grebe. As a prosecutor, I tried some pretty big cases in front of Judge Grebe, and he was always phenomenal. He has always had my utmost respect, and now, as I'm a family court judge primarily, I benefit from his wisdom and guidance because he is the family court judge guru, and he has certainly been helping me, and he couldn't have been more welcoming to me, and I thank you, Judge Grebe. Judge Phil Penna, I want to thank him as well. Phil and I worked together in Levy County and Alachua County, and Phil told you some of what I was going to tell you about him coaching Justin in basketball. I will say this. Phil didn't help me coach the team. Phil coached the team on his own and didn't have a child on the team, but just helped me out and came and coached Justin and all of his buddies and was a phenomenal coach and a phenomenal role model, and I couldn't be more grateful for you doing that. So I thank Phil for being involved in this ceremony, and I know that the citizens of the 8th Circuit are extremely lucky to have someone with his character on the bench. I want to thank Chief Judge Mark Mosley for presiding over this investiture and for all of his leadership for this circuit, and specifically for his guidance for me. He told you a little bit about a story that I was going to tell you, and that we both started in Ocala, working at the state attorney's office. I will tell you that he is a great ambassador for the 8th Circuit Court. When I started in Ocala, I had a secretary. Her name's Connie Clark. Fantastic secretary, a little feisty, fantastic secretary. And one day, somehow I accidentally did something that was right. And Connie, who is a fantastic person, looked at me and said, you know, and she said this with pride, you remind me a little bit of Mark Mosley.
Sweet.
And I took that as a huge compliment. And so I thank you, Judge Mosley. I would like to thank Judge Denise Ferrero. You know, when I wrote this, I didn't know they were going to be sitting right next to me. Okay. I want to thank Judge Ferrero. She, along with Judge Thomas, are my mentor judges. Judge Thomas spends most of his time in Levy County, so Judge Ferrero is stuck with me here in Alachua County, taking my calls and my instant messages and all of my questions, and she has been invaluable as a mentor judge. Any success that I've had in these first 4 months is directly related to Judge Ferrero's guidance. She was, and this was already written before she said it, instrumental in helping me get hired here in Gainesville at the State Attorney's Office. She has constantly been helping my career, and I am very appreciative. And the boys that she told you that I coached in T-ball and that I coached at the Gator halftime shows when they were very tiny now have driver's licenses and are about to start their junior year of high school. Judge Ferrero's knowledge, demeanor, and compassion make her an incredible judge, and I'm lucky and honored to have her as my mentor judge. I want to thank all of the judges who are here today, and especially the visiting judges who came from the 5th Circuit. It's funny because they all come from maybe a different phase of my career. Judge Baxley and I were law students together, and no one would have ever guessed that both of us would be circuit judges. I can tell you that much. I think that if we were as focused on our law studies as we were in our air hockey competitions, we would have been on the U.S. Supreme Court by now. But I thank Judge Baxley for being here. Judge Bass and I were colleagues in the 5th Circuit in Ocala. She is an incredible judge and has already been an incredible help to me as she specializes in family law. We've talked on the phone. She's sent me materials. Just an incredible judge and a great person, and I thank you, Judge Bass. And Judge Taddy was, I know he was Judge Mosley's misdemeanor supervisor, but he was my felony supervisor, and was my felony supervisor for my entire time in felony in Ocala. And I can tell you that I don't know that I've ever met a more prepared or more intelligent assistant state attorney than Tony Taddy. And what he did for my career was amazing. So I thank you, Judge Taddy, for being here today. I have one other person I'd like to recognize, and I don't know that she is here, but I want to talk about her anyway, and that's Casey Glant. She wasn't able to be here. I want to tell you a little story about Casey Glant. The campaign was in October, and I was at a cake sale at a church in High Springs on a Wednesday night, at a cake auction, I should say. And I didn't know many people there, and a woman walked up to me that I recognized a little bit, and that was Mrs. Glant. And she walked up to me, and she couldn't be more gracious. And she said, Sean, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Judge Glant's wife, and unfortunately for all of us, Judge Glant has passed. And she said, is there anything I can do for you? Can I introduce you around? Can I get you something? And she was so nice. And I said, no, I'm fine. Thank you, Miss Glant. And she said, I have a question for you. She goes, what group number are you running for? And so the way circuit judges, there's 13 circuit judges in the 8th Judicial Circuit, and each position has assigned a group number. And so I answered that, I'm running for group 12. And she gave me a big smile. Sorry. And told me that was Judge Glant's group. And I thought the world of Judge Glant. So I just want to thank Casey Glant for being so kind. Some of you know that I grew up down in Seminole, which is down near St. Pete. And that's also the place where I first met Judge Adam Tannenbaum. He is of the 1st District Court of Appeals, and it is an incredible honor for him to be here at this investiture. Judge Tannenbaum and I went to school together from 6th grade through high school graduation. And I think we probably had just about every class together during those 6 years. Then I came up to the University of Florida. I became a political science major. And there's Adam Tannenbaum up here at UF in political science as a major as well, also in classes together here at UF. I think it's probably obvious, given the fact that he's a first DCA judge and I'm just becoming a circuit judge, who did better in all those classes. But I am so happy that Adam is here. All of us in Seminole have always known that Adam was destined for greatness, and I'm honored that he came down to be a part of this. I will tell you, there was a time where we were scheduled to be on April 14th, and Adam told me I can't make it. It's the Taylor Swift concert. Now, he has daughters, so it's understandable. So I want to just thank some people throughout my life, and I'm going to try to go quickly, throughout different areas of my life. And I will tell you that staying in Seminole, my household consisted of my mother, my father, and my sisters, Tara and Jossie. I want to take time now to thank my mom. She can't be here because she can't travel, but she's watching online. And I love you, Mom. I want to thank my dad, my sister Tara, and I want to thank my sister Jossie. She is here with my brother-in-law, Jeff, and my nephews, Holden and Jude. You there, Jude? All right. So I love you all, and I thank you for being here. While I was in Seminole, I became interested in speech and debate, and I competed in various Lincoln Douglas debates, as well as team competitions and speech competitions. In addition, I took a business law class taught by Coach Tom Haight. In this class, I defended Goldilocks during a burglary trial. I was able to shadow a local defense attorney who specialized in trial work, which was invaluable in helping me pick my path. And I'm so happy that Coach Haight had an interest in what my interests were. I believe he's watching today online from Seminole, and he has my continued thanks. So in addition to speech and debate, I did play some sports in high school, although I am extremely glad that my kids get both their athleticism and their good looks from their mother. I'm going to tell you a brief sports story that I think shows why I was destined for courtroom work and trial work and not anything in athletics. When I was in high school, I ran track, and I think you could characterize my speed as somewhere between below average and very below average. But somehow I was running in the county championships for Alachua County for Seminole High as the anchor leg of the 4x100 relay. The stands were packed. There was a huge contingent from Seminole High. A lot of people I knew were there. And I looked over in the lane next to me as I took the track, and the guy next to me was one of the top football prospects in the country, who I didn't know would be running that day, who was one of the top prospects because he was blazing fast. And so I'm thinking, I'm right in front of the grandstand. All these people I know, all these people from Seminole are going to see how much faster this guy is for me. This is going to be embarrassing. I'm dreading the rest of this race. Race hasn't even started yet, and I'm ready to pull a hamstring and get out. So all of these people were going to see what was going to happen, and so I stood there and I waited in my lane, and I waited in dread. And I waited, and the race started. And I waited some more, because what I hadn't counted on was that any relay team that would have me as an anchor was going to be slow all the way through. And this guy had finished the race before I even got the baton. I think he had changed and got some popcorn and was watching the end in the stands. So, the good news was that no one got to see how much faster he was than me, because we were never on the track at the same time. You huddle up as a relay after the relay, and I huddled up with my guys, and they were all saying good job and good job, and I think this is where it shows that I was destined for trial work. I looked them straight in the face with a serious face and said, you know, if you'd kept it close, I would have had him. It was at that point I think I developed the false outward confidence that I needed to be a trial attorney and to work in the courtroom. After graduation from Seminole, where Judge Tannenbaum was the valedictorian, no surprise, I came up here to UF, and that's where I met the main person I have to thank for me being here today, and that's my wife, Laura. I was a junior and a member of Sigma Chi, just like Justin is now, when one of our little sisters came up to me and said, would you mind coaching the Chi Omega Hootin' Owls flag football team? And who could turn that down? So my roommate, Billy Wetzel, and I coached the team, and it was there I met a girl that was known at that time as LQ. And now, when I tell you that the Chi O football team wasn't a strong football team, we won 2 games. One game was because Tri-Delt had a date function that night. And the other game was, I think, luck. But LQ was an amazing athlete. She could catch everything. She had a ton of talent. The only problem was every time she caught the ball, she would giggle to herself for 10 seconds before she would start to run. This didn't bode well for having her flags pulled, but it endeared me toward her. So after a practice, I told my roommate Billy, who was the only other coach on the team, I told him, you know, I'm probably going to ask LQ to go out on a date with me next time I see her. What I hadn't counted on was during the next game, I actually had a game for Sigma Chi, so I wasn't going to be there. And I knew this smelled trouble. So I said to Billy, I said, do I have to tell you not to say anything to LQ when I'm not there at this next game? And I said it rhetorically, but I probably should have said it directly, because during that night, as I walked back from Flavette Field to the Sigma Chi house for my game, in a time before cell phones, internet, texts, or any of that, about 5 people stopped me and said, we think it's so awesome that you're going to ask LQ out on the date. So I made it back to the house and I waited on Billy. And when Billy came back, I asked him, what did you do? And he said, I didn't do anything. I said, Billy, what did you do? And then Billy said to me, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't do anything. Now, I know Billy, and I know nobody in this room does, but his best story started with, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. So I asked him again, and it was at that point he told me, I went up to LQ, and I told her, one of the coaches has a crush on you, and it isn't me. Billy became known as Benedict Arnold from that day on, and he also was the best man in our wedding. And I am forever appreciative for his help, even though I didn't need it. But that's how I met Laura. And I want to thank her from the bottom of my heart for everything she's done for the past 32 years. I think I can sum up how special Laura is in a brief story about a friend of ours who's a pastor up in Chicago. And one day we're just sitting around and he says, have you ever met anybody who doesn't like Laura? I said, no. And he said, I agree. He goes, is there anybody that Laura doesn't like? And I said, well, you know, Laura sees the good in everybody, so if there is such a list, it would be a very short list. And my buddy said, you know, if you were on that list, something would have to be really wrong with you. And I think that tells us about Laura. And I'm forever grateful that I'm not on that list and that she's been with me for the past 32 years. I love you, Laura. I want to recognize Laura's side of the family, her mom and her dad, her Aunt Barb, her brother Scott, our sister-in-law Yvette, and Parks. I see Parker is here. My nephew. So after law school, I started working for Brad King in the 5th District in Ocala, and I want to thank Mr. King, along with Judge Taddy and everybody there that did so much for me. It was truly a special place to work. I want to thank Bill Cervone, who couldn't be here today, and Jeannie Singer, who for 20 years were my state attorney and my chief assistant. I am forever grateful for everything that they've done for my career. After Mr. Cervone retired, I started working for Brian Kramer, and I did that for about 2 years. Although it was never clear if I worked for him or if he worked for me, because nobody can tell us apart. At least, I see some heads nodding, at least 3 times a week, somebody calls me Kramer or somebody calls him Brewer. We call it being Brewered or being Kramered. I can't tell you how many times I was congratulated 2 years ago for winning the state attorney race. And I know the same has occurred for the judgeship for Brian Kramer. In fact, maybe he should be giving this speech because everybody thinks he's the one that actually won. I do have a favorite Kramer story that I want to share.
Oh dear.
I was trying one of my first, actually the first murder case I ever tried in Levy County. Somehow, Brian Kramer was one of the witnesses. That caused me a little bit of concern, and I called Brian to the stand, and his testimony was pretty boring, but his entrance was exceptional. He swung the doors open, looked at Judge Joe Smith, said, "Hey, Judge," and then proceeded to give what we call the double shooters, like this, to Judge Smith. I tell you that story to tell the bailiffs this. Mr. Kramer has threatened to give me the double shooters for the first time when he walks into my courtroom. I do not want his status as a state attorney to prevent you from doing your duty. I also want to thank Chief Assistant Heather Jones and her husband Kelly for their friendship and support. Heather Jones was my chief assistant for the 2 years that I worked for Brian Kramer. And I think Kelly's second job was being my auxiliary campaign consultant, working the phones during the campaign, and I can't thank the two of them enough. So thank you both. That's a good segue for me to thank my campaign consultant, Brian Graham, who is here today. I want to tell you that Brian is by far the best at what he does in North Central Florida, and probably much farther throughout. I can tell you on election nights when I'm having phone conversations with Brian Graham, he's in Manhattan because he's the campaign manager for some of the U.S. congressional seats up there. So I can tell you that his skill is amazing. His demeanor is fantastic. And one of the things I appreciated the most about Brian was the joy that he would have when we had success. And if you can find somebody that works with you and has those qualities, it is, I can tell you, certainly amazing. So thank you, Brian. You know, I entered this campaign in February of last year, and the general election was in November. And during those 9 months, I would say I put about 32,000 miles on my truck. I went to every city commission meeting. I went to every county commission meeting, some twice. So I think it was over 50 meetings. Countless events, countless watermelon festivals, peanut festivals. It was a ton of work, but I can tell you I loved every minute of it. And the reason I loved every minute of it is because I was able to meet so many great people. I was able to learn about all of these cities and these areas from Otter Creek to McClenny. I was able to celebrate with the citizens at their football games, at their baseball games, at their July 4th celebrations, where I think I went to 7 in a 2-day span. You haven't lived till you've been in the Chiefland 4th of July parade at 6 o'clock and then hopped in your car and tried to race to McClenny to get there before the fireworks went off. And but everybody at every single event couldn't have been nicer. And that in itself made the whole campaign experience one of the best in my life. And I want to thank everybody for that. Before I leave the campaign area, I want to thank all of my opponents in the race. One of them, Broncy Martin, and I were in this together for 9 months, from February through the general election. Broncy was a consummate pro and a gentleman throughout. We always shook hands or fist bumped at every event we were both at, and that was just about every day. I want to thank Broncy Martin for being such a great representative for the 8th Circuit. Now, I do have an Broncy Martin story that I want to tell. And as you would expect, it doesn't reflect negatively on him at all, but it needs to be told. It was spring break of last year, and I'd had a pretty stressful day. I was taking Kyle up to some baseball games during his spring break in Jacksonville. We had a hotel. The clerk gave me a key. I walk in. The room is occupied. It was an awkward moment. I left, and they had no other rooms. So I'm trying to process all of this and figure it out. And someone tells me Broncy Martin's campaign website is up. So I look on my phone, I check it out. It's fantastic. It's very well done. It's got great graphics, great pictures. And as I'm scrolling through the pictures, I stop on one. And there's 2 reasons I stop on the picture. The first is, I'm pretty sure I took the picture. The second is, it's of Mr. Martin being a Cub Scout den leader in front of a bunch of Cub Scouts, and right in the middle featured is Kyle Brewer. So I sat there and I thought, Broncy Martin doesn't know that my kid is in this picture. There's a bunch of kids in this picture. I'm not going to say anything. We're just going to move on. That was all great. And then the primary came up and Broncy Martin started running some commercials. You guessed it, featuring Kyle Brewer in his Cub Scout picture. Once again, Broncy Martin didn't know this. I never said anything to him. It's not a big deal. So everything I told you is 100% true. And when I tell you that no one knew that Kyle was in the picture, I can tell you this. Kyle knew. Kyle knew that he was on all of my material, my website, my commercials, and Broncy Martin's website and commercials. And he started to get a little big head about it. Kyle said to me before the general election, "Look, big guy, I need a little more FaceTime in your campaign." I thought he was kidding and I laughed it off until the day of the general election. And on the day of the general election, which some of you know was also my birthday, so it was a pressure-filled day. It was either going to be a day I remembered fondly for the rest of my life, or it was a day I was not going to remember fondly for the rest of my life. I woke up early to go to the polls, and I heard noise coming out of Kyle's room. Now, that's not completely uncommon, because sometimes he gets up and goes to the gym and works out before school. So I kind of hung around to see what he was doing. His door swings open, and there's Kyle in a t-shirt with a screen printing of the Cub Scout picture, handwritten, "Vote for Broncy." As I stared with my mouth wide open, Kyle said, "I've got to build my brand, big guy." You learn a lot about people during campaigns. Now, the end of that story may be exaggerated, but one thing I think I can never fully put into words is the love I have for my wife and my kids. And I want to talk about my sons now. The Avett brothers, which some of you know I'm a big fan of, have a lyric that says, "Always remember there was nothing worth sharing like the love that let us share your name." I'm so proud to share my name with these 4. I want to start with Blake. I'm so proud of the young man he is becoming. As I said, I'm lucky that all my boys get their athleticism and looks from Laura, but Blake got that in spades. One of the things that impresses me the most about Blake is that you can put him in any social situation, and by the end of it, his smile and sense of humor will have won over the room. And the most important thing that I can tell you about Blake is his kindness for others. So I can't wait to see what the future unfolds for Blake Brewer. Then there's Kyle. Even though we may have been on opposite sides of a campaign, he is a man now. He'll be graduating high school in a few weeks. He'll start in the district tournaments next week for Buchholz's baseball team that's highly ranked in the state. And then in the fall, he's going to be starting his college years up at FSU in Tallahassee. There is no one in my family better equipped to go out on their own and spread their wings than Kyle. There's nothing that phases him. I'm sure that as part of being the middle child, he's used to getting it from both ends, and he just perseveres. His only curse is he's the one that looks the most like me, but thankfully there's plenty of his mom's good looks in it. Kyle's attributes include his subtle sense of humor and his amazing insightfulness. Seeing him on the ball field and the way he treats everybody with respect and goodwill, it is impressive. His future is starting now, and I'm so proud to be his dad with a front row seat. Finally, there's Justin. In addition to giving that speech today, this was Justin's finals week. He had 4 engineering finals at UF this week, and he still came and gave that speech. His work ethic is beyond impressive. He and I are both Sigma Chi's, and he and his fraternity brothers, which are our fraternity brothers, were such hard workers during my campaign. They were wearing shirts, they were having bumper magnets on their car, they were holding campaign signs all day at polling places for both the primary and the general election. All of that was organized by Justin. I am forever grateful to him and them. And one thing I know is that when I'm in the room with Justin, there's no way I'm the smartest guy in the room. But as smart as he is kind and considerate. He is already started on his bright future, and I'm incredibly proud of him. I hit the jackpot in marriage and fatherhood, and I love you all. That seems like the perfect place to end my speech. Thank you all for being here. I will be working hard every day to earn the privilege I received when you elected me to the circuit court bench. Thank you.
We can all remain standing at this time as Chaplain Brian Ray, Colonel, U.S. Army Reserve. He will come forward and lead us in our benediction.
Yes.
Small bow, nice.
Before I begin with a prayer, I just want to say one thing. Raising kids is a difficult endeavor. And I know that I had a kid who was able to look up to an older man when he appeared to be a boy. And I've told my son that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I will tell you, if you spend time with Sean Brewer, your average goes up. It goes up. Please join me in prayer. Almighty, ever-living God, we thank you for the opportunity you've given us this afternoon to celebrate this investiture of Sean Brewer, a great public servant who has served tirelessly in the halls of justice for many years. Lord, those who wear that robe, as Sean now does, know what an honor and privilege it is to serve their fellow citizens by upholding the laws of the land and the cause of justice. Lord, you've been with Sean as he has served his fellow citizens. We thank you for choosing public servants like Sean, who have the strong will and the resolute integrity that is so critical for our system of justice. Lord, we thank you for the support of Sean's family, his wife Laura, their 3 sons, who know all too well the sacrifice required to endeavor in public service. Lord, as we leave today, let us not forget that every blessing that we enjoy in this great nation comes from your hand. For all those gathered here who faithfully serve in our judicial system, I ask you to fortify them with moral courage and unwavering integrity as they continue to fulfill their important responsibilities in support of our community and our nation. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, this ceremonial session of the 8th Judicial Circuit is adjourned. Thank you for your being here. Please join us at the reception.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.